So this is the conrod out of this Ferrari engine, which is quite clearly bent. And this is the Ferrari 430 that I bought from the track experience place for £60,000. Which may sound expensive, but our only saving grace is that this is a gated manual. And the only gated manual coupe for sale in the UK is just short of £100,000. So it's safe to say the budget is going to be tight when rebuilding this Ferrari. Oh my God. Which is going to be difficult, seeing as most of the engine and the gearbox came with this car in millions of pieces. But now I need to see what £60,000 got me. Go. Let me explain the bumper situation. In fact, Hannah's going to explain the bumper situation. This is not the bumper that should be on a F430. This is a Scudder rear bumper, which is a little bit more expensive. In fact, a lot more expensive than a 430 bumper. How much is one of these bumpers?
The bumper alone, £3,245.20.
Not only that, this thing here, how much is that?
£2,263.72p.
And 72p. This is like over £5,000 worth of bumper, and it's got self-tapper screws in it. It's absolutely battered. Safe to say, I don't think we're going to be replacing it with a Scudder rear bumper. We're going to have to look elsewhere. It's salvageable. Now the rear bumper, I don't think it's actually original, but it is a 430 bumper. But how much is one of them?
£3,101.
And the diffuser, which is missing, which is what we're going to need to buy, is how much?
Oh wait.
how much is the
diffuser is £3,101. The bumper is £4,480. The carbon one, £8,430.
Oh my God. So we're not having a carbon diffuser. Okay, we've definitely got to find maybe some second-hand parts. I don't know. I'm not sure that's supposed to be in here. Oh, is it off?
Well, the bumper's off.
Hey! Now, seeing as this car hasn't been on the road in over 11 years, it's gathered a lot of dust. So I thought it's only right that we cleaned it, which made me notice a few strange things. Grey, grey, and then on this side, silver and silver. Nice. And now it's time we remove any evidence of it ever being a track experience car. Although I think its life on track was short-lived, as the bodywork's looking pretty good for an ex-track car. How good has this turned out? It's starting to look promising. For a 2005 car, the paint looks really good, bearing in mind it's been absolutely battered around a track its whole life. We've got a little, like, I don't know whether it's peel or, like, I don't know if it's rust, because I think these are aluminium, so I don't, that's a problem. Apparently on the F430s it's common for the lights to wobble. There's no exception on my one because it's so sticky, it leaves fingerprints in it. But the time that it did spend on track took its toll on the interior, especially as it was left to sit there for a long time. According to Google, only around 1,500 manual F430s were ever made, which makes this one pretty special. First out is the seats. 4 bolts holding them in, and 1 seat belt which is connected to them. Then we can start attacking the carpet. And whilst my dad was working on the front of the car, he found something missing. What's missing?
Well, you see that hole under there, look? That's supposed to have the clutch master cylinder.
Oh, wow. Wow. The master cylinder is... Why would they take another master cylinder unless there was another manual? The clutch master cylinder is attached to the clutch pedal, and its job when you push down the clutch pedal is to push hydraulic fluid through the clutch system, allowing you to release the clutch. Finding a second-hand master cylinder on one of these could be pretty hard, and brand new, you're looking at around £332. Cheers, guys, thank you. So it's beyond me why that master cylinder's missing, but we'll worry about that later. For now, I'm cracking on with getting this interior back to how it should be. It's not a full detail, but the interior has been absolutely transformed by about an hour worth of cleaning. It's definitely making me feel a little bit more confident about my purchase. Okay, we have got Freddie's engine, which he kindly donated to us, which has a bent conrod. One bent conrod. And then we also have the original engine block here. We've got to make a decision now on what block we're going to use, because we've got to build up an engine for this Ferrari. Bad news about the original block is in some of the cylinders, you might find it hard to see here, they are scored. Now these sleeves, you can actually replace them, but in Freddie's block, these cylinders are all good. So I think we're going to use this block. Yeah. Now I know the Ferrari fanatics are probably not going to like that I'm not using the original block, but for now, this is the most cost-effective option. So let's start stripping this one. And we've got a lovely new parts cleaner. Thanks, Motul. Whilst Hannah is on the cleaning duty, me and my dad are trying to work out how this engine was assembled. Before we take this engine apart, we're just taking note on how it was put together, providing it was put together actually properly. But if you look at the bottom of the rods here, that's marked with a Y and then a number. And then on this side, it's marked with an X and a number. Then again, it goes to Y and a number, and X and a number. So it constantly goes Y, X. The last cylinder, this one, it went with a Y on this side, but the one that's actually bent is also a Y marked conrod. As we couldn't really see any pattern between the X conrods and the Y conrods, and it's also really difficult to find any information on this engine online, which you'll find is a problem later in the video, I can only think of one person I could turn to. We're trying to work out these conrods because they're all marked weirdly, like, so some have X on and some have Y on.
So if it's on the bottom of the cap facing you when you flip the engine upside down, I'm sure that's a batching number. To be honest, mate, unless you want to balance the rotating assembly, I wouldn't really worry too much, because I'm pretty confident we get it on the Audis as well, where they're like a batching code. So you can look at it and you can go, oh, all the X's are like a certain weight, but it doesn't really matter too much as long as your codes on the side of the rod match. So as long as FI, mate, you'll be mint.
We have two crankshafts, one out of Freddie's engine and one out of the original engine. We need to make sure one of them is at least good. The crankshaft is a huge part right near the bottom of the engine. The explosion from the combustion pushes the piston and the conrod down, which makes the crankshaft rotate. Now, as we had a bent conrod on our engine, which seized the engine up, we want to make sure that that's caused no damage to the actual crankshaft, because this part of the crankshaft is where the bearing sits, and if it's damaged here, it might not be getting the right oil feed or have the right clearances, which would cause engine failure all over again. Now, what I'm doing now with a micrometer is measuring one side of the crankshaft, then the other side, making sure it's all even. And I'm doing this in two places for each part of the crankshaft where the bearing sits. All the engineer people are going to say this is not an exact measurement, but no, but we think it's pretty good. It's the best we can do with the kit we've got, basically. I'm confident with this one. Let me show you what I think a bad crank looks like. This goes straight over that, and I assume, look at that. I don't even have to adjust the micrometer, look. Doesn't go over that, straight over that. I mean, I don't think I'll be putting that one in. There's visual light scores in that one, but we're struggling to see any difference in any of that crank. We're gonna say that one is good, this one for the bin. Now the engine is pretty much completely stripped, so we're going to clean it all up in the parts washer before we can build it all back up again. But to move forward from this point, we're going to need some parts. And there's only one place I could think of where we could get parts fast. I'm gonna come here and hopefully leave with loads of Ferrari parts. Let's get shopping. We've took a trip to Euros fairs, which have a load of new and used Ferrari parts. Their warehouse is absolutely massive. They even have full complete engines for sale. So we made sure to take a lot of photos of how the engine was assembled whilst it was on the rack in there. But we didn't come for an engine. One red bumper, one orange bumper, and a bunch of stuff which should help us build up the Ferrari engine when we get back. I don't know how much for, but we spent a lot. Now there's loads of parts on this Ferrari that we can cross-reference to different cars. And we can save a lot of money by doing that. But there's some parts like the bumpers and a lot of the seals and bearings which aren't cross-referenced. So they're the bits that we're buying today. And the total amount of parts we have here, it didn't look like much, but it's fitted into a Range Rover. £13,887.48p, which means we are now £73,887.48p into the 430. But we should have enough now to put this thing back together. Most of it really, but we'll find out. One very expensive trip later and we're back, and now we can start building up the engine. I think what we're going to start with are the 2-cylinder heads. With this being a V8, there's 2-cylinder heads, 4 pistons each side. Here's 1-cylinder head and here's the other. This one's upside down, but you can see here the exhaust valves and then the inlet valves on this side here. These are gonna open and close to let air in and to let all the waste out. But to make sure we're gonna get the most power out of the engine, these have got to sit perfectly flat against the top of the head. And to make sure that we do so, we've got to take them all out. And these are held in here with little springs and these collets on the top of the valve. But we'll take them out and we'll go from there. Let's do it. To take them out, my dad's going to use this sort of clamp which squashes the valve springs down. And then once the valve springs are squashed down, it can get a magnet to remove the collets which hold the valve spring onto the valves. Once the collets are removed, we can release the clamp and then remove the valve springs, which will give us access to the valve. And this part right at the bottom, we want that to be super clean so it sits nicely in the valve seats. My dad's got a lot to get through, so whilst he was doing that, I put the Ferrari in the lift to inspect the underneath of it. Found something else. I just noticed there's a bolt in there and a bolt in there, like these brackets which are like mounted to the chassis. And then on this side, there's no bolt here or here, so the radiator is just completely free. So we're missing some kind of bracket on the top and the bottom there. Well, fantastic. Now before I bought this car, I checked it out on Car Vertical and everything seems all good. There's no records of it ever being in an accident. There's no outstanding finance, there's no mileage rollbacks, and it's never been recorded as stolen. But as this car was a track experience car for most of its life, it's unlikely that a crash would have ever been recorded. So I'm going to take a look over it and see if there's any signs of one. We're actually doing all right here. So underneath here, it looks like the standard suspension is adjustable coilovers, so we can adjust the ride height up and down. It's also looks like it's adaptive, so maybe it's got some kind of adaptive suspension to harden and soften it when you're in different modes. Everything here looks pretty good for a 2005 car. Anything on this side looks fine, and that side looks fine. Let's have a look underneath. Now, if you were checking a car out on Car Vertical which had previously been in an accident, then it would flag up on the report here. And if the car was auctioned off at a car crash auction site, it's likely we'll see the photos of where the car was damaged as well. Not only that, you can see a full timeline of the car and loads of other information, so it can be really handy when buying a used car. So to take your car, a friend's car, or a car that you're potentially about to buy, click the link in the description box below, use code MATT for discount, and thank me later when you can find out a few hidden secrets that you might not have necessarily known about the car you're looking at. Right, underneath. I'm guessing this is all part of a rear diffuser. What's all them? Look at all these bolts. They didn't want this falling off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, like a small scratch there, but nothing Really that bad? Oh, a little bit of a corner miss in there, but yeah. With the valves now out of the cylinder head, we now have another job, the valve seals. The seal sits on the valve here and stops any oil from getting on top of the valve or inside the combustion chamber.
Normally when the oil's on the springs and everything at night, and then it runs down the stem of the valve.
Yeah.
You know, it runs down the stem of the valve past the seal and then rests on top of your piston. So when you start up in the morning, it smokes like smokes a lot.
And they're in every single one. And that's exactly what will happen if we have bad valve seals. We'll get a lot of smoke on startup in the mornings, or really bad ones could just smoke all the time. But before we put new seals in, we've got to clean up the valves. Next step, now that they're clean, we've got to make sure they mate nicely on the surface around here. So we use this paste, which is kind of like grinding paste almost, and that's going to go in the seat. Slide it in, and we're going to grind it. Yeah. Yeah.
And you see how that's all nice and clean. If you look at this one, there's a good one that's not very good.
Oh yeah, and that's all dirty.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you see how that's the seat?
Oh, now it's
nice
nice
and
and
shiny.
clean. Ah. Yeah, all the power. Right, 32 to go. Well, 31 now. My dad and myself cracked on with grinding the rest of the valves in place before moving on to the next step. Okay, valves are clean, seated in. All we've got to do now, we're going to keep the same springs on there, but we need to change the valve seals. We've got this full seal kit. These are the new valve seals, and as I mentioned, they're pretty vital to replace when doing an engine build like this. My dad's using a socket to push the oil seal in place, and once the seal is sat in place like that, we can then push the valve in from underneath, and it should fit nice and snug. Then it's time for both the valve springs to sit on top of the valve, and we've got to compress this all to put the collet in place. Now, we saw a video on TikTok of a guy doing some kind of hack to get the collet in place using a socket and a piece of plastic, and we were dying to see whether that actually worked, because if it did, it would save a lot of his time fiddling around with the collets. Collets are in. Okay, plastic bag. And
This is a good idea, this.
clamp. Yeah, go and squeeze it.
Oh no.
Oh no, it's gonna launch, it's gonna launch. We failed on our first attempt, but on the second,
Yes!
hey, did it work? Yeah! Once we'd sussed the hack out, we were moving quick time, putting all the valves, the springs and the collets back on each one. And there we go. Every valve spring is in. That head is just about ready, but we need to test it to make sure a valve, well, all of them are actually properly in, because if the valve opens and it then drops it into the cylinder, it could be drastic, and we don't want to do that. So we're going to test them now by just knocking the valve down to open it and making sure everything stays in place. Is this how Ferrari would do it?
Yeah.
Whee! One cylinder head ready for the engine. We just got to do that one now. With the cylinder heads complete, we can then turn our attention to the actual engine block. And one thing we need to do before we reassemble it is make sure the cylinder sleeves are nice and smooth. At the minute you can see there's a lot of scratches and grooves in there, but nothing that can't be fixed. And to sort these out, we need to rub a bit of oil in the sleeve. And then my dad's going to use this tool to hone out the cylinder. And there we have one smooth cylinder sleeve. Just another 7 to go. All of the sleeves are nice and smooth. This engine is effectively ready to build back up. Let's go. It's actually a sticker gasket then.
And you think it sticks on this bit?
Yeah, well, you think it does. Next gasket.
Does that have a sticker on it?
No stickers on that one. Click.
Or is it beep?
Oh yeah, beep. We're in a predicament. I've just ordered a workshop manual for the Ferrari engine, which is also a Maserati engine, but it only shows you torque specs and workshop procedures for serviceable items. So things like clutches, thermostats, auxiliary belts, nothing as big as this. And we've since found out that Ferrari don't give out torque specs or repair procedures for jobs as big as this because it's supposed to be done by Ferrari and not just a bloke in a garage in Leicester. So if you're a Ferrari technician, then the comment section is open for you. We need your help because I'm not sure Ferrari are going to help us, although we're trying to put one of their cars back on the road. And our next step is to do the piston ring gap. We've taught this to our spec. It's just tight, okay? But the next thing is to do all the piston ring gaps. That's what we've got to do next. But we can't do that, one, without the piston ring specs, and two, without the piston rings. They haven't arrived yet, so we're stuck.
How can you order those items for a big strip down if they can't give you the specs to tighten them up?
That is actually quite true. How in the UK, they can sell you structural parts for a Porsche, but they can't tell you how to fit them. So Ferrari must be able to sell you parts,
but then they've got to fit them.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So we're left with this bent conrod. Shall I throw it away?
No, I want to give it away.
I think we're gonna give this conrod away to someone who orders within the next 100 orders of mattarmstrong.co.uk. The hoodies are out, the new hard work Beat Talent hoodie. You can check it out with the link in the description. Oh, and the hats as well. Go grab something and we'll pick someone in the next 100 orders to send that conrod to. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.
Yeah, I like nuts, yeah. No, I know all about them.